Good morning, everybody. Yep, it's still raining as I record this, and well, I get to sit underneath my cottage. It has a nice roof, and I'm still close to the out of doors, and I still have my friendly chickens all around me, and some ducks in the background there. Hopefully you can see them. So, yeah, it's kind of a nice day. It's not super cold. It's cool, but not too bad. No wind or anything like that. So, we're going to talk about water in just a moment. We're focusing in on the alternate Old Testament lesson for this Sunday, which is from Deuteronomy, the 34th chapter. But before we get there, I'd like to give you a quiz, a test. It's Testy Tuesday. So here we go. In the Old Testament, there is an individual who's mentioned who had no parents. I mean, he just had no parentage at all. Nothing. It's not like he was an orphan. He had no parents. Who was that individual? And I'm going to give you a little clue here. It's not Adam, and it's not Eve. All right? It's who had no parents. Interesting, isn't it? Here's your choices. Number one, your first choices. Was it Noah? Number two, was it Elijah? Number three, was it Joshua? Number four, was it Ezekiel? Noah, Elijah, Joshua, Ezekiel. Who do you think? I'm not going to tell you. Yeah, I'm going to tell you. Are you ready? The answer is Joshua. Joshua, the son of Nun. What? Oh, the son of Nun, N-U-N, which is a person and not N-O-N-E. Yeah, I thought there was something kind of weird about that. You're right. He was the son of Nun, N-U-N. So I guess he had a mom and dad after all. Now, the reason I mention that is Joshua is mentioned in this scripture passage, the 34th chapter of Deuteronomy. It's a very short passage. It's only 12 verses long, but it leads into the next book of the Bible, which is, drum roll please, Joshua. Our text, Deuteronomy 34, talks about Moses' death. Now, he's lifted up in this passage as being the greatest prophet ever in Israel. The greatest ever. He is the one that's constantly referred to and looked back to as the one who saved Israel using the powers that Yahweh, the God of the people, had given him in order to lead them out of captivity into the promised land. Now, time and time again, let's get to the water thing here. You might remember that as the people of Israel were being led out of Egypt, they kept griping and groaning to Moses. Ah, man, why did you bring us out here to die? We have nothing to drink. All of our livestock's going to die. Our kids are going to die. We're going to die. Why did you do that? You and Aaron, why did you bring us out here? You and your God, Yahweh. Well, come on, it's your God too, people. But so Moses and Aaron took it to Yahweh. Yahweh said, hey, there's a rock there in Meribah. I want you to go there and speak to the rock. When you speak to that rock, out is going to gush all this water, enough to give sustenance to all the livestock, to all the people. And this is hundreds of thousands of people at this point. They had really grown in population. And that's what Moses did. Well, that's what we read in one account. There's another account that says Moses was so angry at the people that he went up on that rock, and he didn't speak to the rock. He just took his staff and he beat the rock, and out of the rock flowed the water. And God told Moses, because of that incident, because you didn't trust me just to speak to that rock, instead you had to take your stick and start beating it, you are not going to enter the promised land. However, he did do something for Moses. As we read in this chapter 34 of Deuteronomy, he told Moses, climb up the mountain, and there it's Mount Nebo. It also is given another name too, Pisgah. And there seem to be two different traditions as to which mountaintop Moses died on. One says Pisgah, and the other one says Nebo. And here in Deuteronomy, they combine them both, just to, hedge all their bets. Anyhow, he goes up there and God shows him all the land. Now, as you're reading through there, the first 6 verses or so, there's a lot of different names of different places and where all the different tribes are going to be settling and things like that. Now remember, they hadn't even moved in there yet. They're going to in the next book in the Bible, in Joshua. Under Joshua, they will do that. But for now, he allows Moses to see all this land. Here's the deal. It is impossible to go up on Mount Nebo, which you could do today, and look out over all the different places that are mentioned here. You just can't see all of them from that vantage point. You can see a lot of them, but not all of them. God is giving Moses a vision of what is to be, that they will enter the promised land. Not the original people who came out of Egypt. Remember, they were all cursed to wander for 40 years and die in the wilderness. This is their kids. This is their offspring. They will enter in under the guidance and leadership of Joshua. Just before this chapter, Moses has renewed the covenant agreement between God and the people, and he has announced and anointed Joshua as his successor. He did that for a reason. He wants the people now to look up to Joshua. And when they saw that Moses is the one that appointed him, they knew it was God. It was Yahweh as well. So it was a great little segue here between the book of Deuteronomy. Now we get into Joshua. And there's quite a bit of interesting stuff that goes on there. But again, as I have said before, all that's for another day. But it's interesting that Moses, even though he wasn't allowed to enter the promised land, he is greatly revered and respected in this passage from Deuteronomy 34. In fact, he's called the greatest prophet ever that arose and led the people of Israel. The greatest ever. And we'll see that time and time again. All through the Old Testament readings and scriptures, there's always that reference to Moses, the one who led them out of slavery, out of the bondage of slavery in Egypt, into the promised land. Another interesting thing real quick about this. No one saw Moses die. And no one saw where he was buried. Although the scripture says that God called him and God buried him. It was Yahweh. And there was probably a good reason for that. Number one, God said, Moses, you are not going to enter the promised land. So he didn't want the people later on to find out where he was, dig up his bones, and carry them into the promised land. That wasn't going to happen. But also, there was never going to be a shrine to Moses. No, just wasn't going to happen. The people would now put their complete faith and trust in Yahweh. Moses had led them this far, and Moses continually pointed the way to Yahweh. And that is what was most important in this story. So, interesting way to finish the book of Deuteronomy and move into now the books that are considered the historical books in the Old Testament, starting with Joshua. Although Deuteronomy actually means the second giving of the law, it's a second recount of the story of the giving of the law. So it's historical in that respect. But from this point on, we move into the conquest of the Promised Land, the rise of a great empire. Well, not really an empire as like the Babylonians or the Persians or the Greeks, but a great nation that had considerable power in the Middle East, but also the fall of that empire, as we've seen time and time again in our look at some of the prophetic books that come later in Scripture. So, God's blessings be with you. And hopefully the sun will start shining soon, or maybe it's shining where you're at right now. But until it does, have a great day.